Spectrovision Radio. Spectrovision Radio.
This, what I called a rock gnome. It's like this stony kind of being sat, and it looked like he was handing me a book, like he had a book in his hands that he was handing me.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, Jo. Lovely to be here.
It's really fantastic. We've just had a very quick chat there as we've been kind of organising ourselves to work with live, which is always really exciting. It's so lovely to be back with you. We obviously have chats from time to time, but we haven't sat down and had a really good proper chat. I'm going to link below our previous chat that people can link into too, because there was lots there too. But the reason you're here today is, congratulations on your new book or books, The Heart of Pixieland. Because it's a huge achievement and so much more to say on that. But yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, Jo. Yes, I can't believe it. It's really lovely just to get them out to the world after a few years, really, of writing and editing. But because you're doing that at the moment, or you've just completed yours, haven't you? So, yeah, quite a process.
It's a huge task. And do you know what really struck me when I was thinking about it? Because you ended up with 2 volumes, didn't you? And I don't know about you, but I find that to me it's like birthing a child, basically.
It is, yeah. I'm in the postpartum period, as a friend's put it. I've just been absolutely knackered and not wanted to do anything really since I released the books, because it is, it's like a huge push. Yeah,
it is, and you're kind of carrying them with you for that period while you're writing, while you're researching, because everything that you're doing in the world, you have them with you. So, and what I thought was, because you're a mother of twins, aren't you?
Yes.
And you've ended up with 2 books.
Yes, it's so funny you should say that, because I thought of that the other day. It's when it came to me, I thought, oh, I've had twins and now I've got twin books.
Yeah. There's something in that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There is. There's something that, I don't know. I mean, there is a story behind my twins, because I really wanted, I got to a stage where I really wanted to have children, and I did a little prayer and I said, just send them to me. I want a boy and a girl. Just send, I'm ready. And they both came at the same time.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. So this is it. I mean, I think, your connection with the other realm is really strong, and we're going to get into that today. And I think anybody that does read Heart of Pixieland will it be astonishing, glaringly obvious to anybody that reads the book how connected in you are. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact that you are based in a landscape which generations of your family have lived in.
Yes. So on the Casely side of my family, my father's side, they go back to about at least the 1600s in the Teem Valley, I grew up in Kingstainton, near the River Tean, and my ancestors, they lived in that area, and some of them on Dartmoor. But it wasn't until my great grandparents' generation that they ended up living at Princetown because of the prison. So my great grandparents, my great grandfathers worked at the prison. So my grandparents grew up in the middle of Dartmoor.
Because for anybody that doesn't know, that prison is literally in the middle of Dartmoor. You would not expect a prison to be there.
Yes. Quite a grim place in times past, but I think in more recent times, obviously modernised, a bit nicer. The interesting thing is that I was reading the other day some research about wild men, and one of the prisoners saw, I think this is in comparatively recent times, saw a hairy wild man emerging from the trees near the prison and catching a bird. So because they were in that place, incarcerated in the middle of this wilderness, this window on the world, they had a lot of time to observe. And I think that's true of a lot of connection with these other realms, is that it's when we give ourselves time to be in a place and keep connecting with it, that's when these strange experiences happen.
Yeah, that's true. You have frozen there. Hopefully you'll be back. Perhaps it's a good time for me to say that we are, of course, live. Anyone that's noticing the glitching happening here is because it's an extremely hot day today. It's about 33 degrees, and that's outside. And the conservatory where I usually record is a kind of no-go area at the moment. And so that's why we're here with this background. Your video is still stalled there, Claire, but hopefully you can.
Can you hear me still?
I can hear you still, so hopefully you'll come back in a second. And the other thing to say is a big hello to all the folks that are joining us live on YouTube. So we've got Cobweb and Stephen and Caroline, Vivian, Mark and Kimmy. Names I know very well from the Patreon. Lovely folks that we chat on Discord together and are wonderful at coming and joining in these sorts of chats that we have. So a big hello and welcome to them, and an invitation that if you have a question for Claire, please pop that in the comments in capitals so that I can find it in a while when we'll get to the point where we're doing some questions. So Claire, can you still hear me okay, and you're still good?
Yes, I can still hear you. Wonders of technology.
We knew there'd be something, because where pixies are involved, all manner of shenanigans arise, let's face it.
Yeah, I did say to you, didn't I?
We did.
The naughty pixies, stay away.
We knew.
Yeah.
So now, the other thing to say, Claire, is that you are, not only are you an author and a researcher, but you are the host of the Fairy Whispering podcast. Now, that's a podcast that's been going, I think, since 2021. Is that correct? 2022?
2022.
22, yeah.
Yes.
And you've also got your Substack now, which is a really lovely one to follow. So what we'll do is we'll pop the links in at the end, but can you just let people know, if they want to hop along and find you now, what your Substack is called?
Yes, it's the fairywhisperingway.com. And I post about my episodes on there. And I'm hoping to do a bit more, right now my book's published, to do a bit more fairy related writing on there as well. Excellent. Not just the episodes. Yeah.
It's a really great holding space. Now, when I was reading your book, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, I mean, it just takes you away. It takes you away from this realm that we're in at the moment, and it takes you back in time in places, and it brings you joy. What I really found running throughout your, both volumes, is your love and your heartfelt gift of connection with the natural landscape where you live, because the heart of Pixieland is about West Country pixies and anything to do with West Country pixies. So I really enjoyed the way that you shared your own personal experience of these places throughout the book. And at times you talked about, feeling called to kind of skip, dance and sing along the landscape.
Yes. I was feeling that last night, actually, with the eclipse. That was such a powerful moment, wasn't it? Everyone coming together, and everyone had a sense of expectation and excitement. And it was almost like the sun and the moon were excited as well. They were performing for us. I just wanted to give them a round of applause at the end. But yes, there are certain places in nature that I remember as a child feeling that I just wanted to dance or express joy in some way, especially on the riverbanks of the River Dart near Newbridge. And that is a traditional pixie dancing place in folklore, where pixies have been seen dancing by the river. And I thought, well, people in the past, in celebrating pre-Christian times, in celebrating the natural elements, they must have felt that same joy at being so close to this wonderful natural element of water and expressing that through some kind of celebration and dance. And as we get older, we lose that impulse a bit, and it becomes a bit, we self-censor ourselves, but I was allowing myself to express that as a 50-something year old woman to just express that, and it's so rewarding and so uplifting to be able to move through these places in that, in a joyful way.
Yeah, I really agree. And at times you were able to share this with your children as well, which is so precious.
Yes,
and,
when they was sorry.
No, go on.
Yes, and I've got a poem. Shall I read the poem?
Yeah, let's read it now. Yeah, let's go for it now.
Okay, so this is a poem that, because I involved my children in taking them out to nature from a young age, and expressed my beliefs in fairies and sharing stories with them, they kind of embodied that themselves as children. And spontaneously on the way to school one day, and my son was, I guess he was about 7 or 8 years old, he was going out the door and he sang this little song. And so I turned it into a very short poem. So yeah, I've written, being in nature allows us to physically and mentally unfurl like a fern. This poem was inspired by a spontaneous song that one of my children sang on the way to school one day. Every little person loves to dance, so come along and take a chance. Every small pixie likes to sing, hear the joy that music can't bring. Let the pixie rhythms move your feet. Join the fun and feel the beat. In our world where laughter rings, together we'll share what joy brings. So yeah, I feel quite moved reading that, because it's just, remembering that childhood sense of there's just joy and expression. It's just spontaneous. And it's so important that we can reconnect with that ourselves.
So true. And you know, singing that with your children, and also kind of encouraging them that whatever they come up with, whatever they're inspired by, was it a dream last night, was it the beginning of a poem, or just an idea or a picture or whatever, and then it just helps them to kind of lean into that too. And when you're singing it, that's an offering, isn't it? That's an offering to the landscape itself when you're doing that.
Because during that time we were living on a housing estate, and we'd take a certain route through the estate to school, and I encouraged my children to we'd pick up trash on the way home, anything along the path. We'd pick it up and put it in the bin when we got home. So it was like a ritual, really, that we were connecting with that place in that way, and just showing our appreciation and respect for that small little area. But everyone can do that in some way, show some love and respect for the place, because then I think we do get it back as well. Not that it's about that, but we get it back in different ways. I think, if we talk about reciprocity with fairies, it is a give and take. Definitely, that's in my experience with the other world, that what we put out, the intentions we put out, or whatever the gift is, it doesn't have to be something physical. It can be a song that does come back to us in our lives. And I've certainly found that as a truth anyway in my life.
Yeah. I've spoken about this before myself. I'm completely with you that is how I experience it too. And I know many of the people that are watching will be saying the same, because they understand that too. And sometimes little gifts can come. You've maybe picked up some litter or something like that, and a little bird will come along and come and chirp next to you, or a feather will fall down into your lap, or that's the kind of reciprocity. You feel it in your heart, and it's something that you begin to recognize as well, those kind of when those conversations arise. And it is something that I think our ancestors probably did do. And what I found also in reading your book is that not only did you kind of pay honor to the land, but to the stories themselves, because a lot of the stories that you shared in the first volume, which is around the folklore and also your own experiences too, with some of the folk tales, you then, because you know the landscape so well, you actually went to those places and you looked for clues. If there was a story about a certain person in that story, you would actually follow the tracks. And you did this with Nanny Nourish. Could you tell us about that, please? Because I found that really charming.
Yes. So the Nanny Nourish, she was a woman that lived in a small place called Dunstone, which is not far from Widdicombe. And her husband, she was a washerwoman, and her husband was the local teacher of the school, but he became too ill. So we call her a carer these days. She became like a carer for her husband and had to earn a living for both of them. So she would trudge over the moor from Widdicombe, or from Dunstone rather, to local farmhouses and do their laundry. So I wanted to follow her tracks, because she, as part of one of these journeys, she spoke badly of the Pixies, and they basically led her astray on Dartmoor. So she lost her way and was lost for hours and unable to find the way home. And she finally, after several hours of wandering, she found her way back home. And that was the lesson that they dealt out for her, saying mean things about them. So they don't like to be spoken about badly, or spoken about at all, actually. especially their secrets. Not supposed to give their secrets away. So yeah, this was about 4 years ago. I decided to follow the route of her journey from Dunstone, and I realised in doing that this person, if she was a real person, and I've got the feeling it was based on a real woman, because there was a headmaster, there was a small school in this place, and there were people called Norrish in the area. So I looked into the ancestry, because I really love genealogy. And I realised that she must have been really tough, if she was my age or older, walking up over Dartmoor in all weathers to do this washing work. She must have been a really, hardy woman. And I gained some respect for her as a real woman doing this. Especially laundry in the Victorian times was not like it is today. It was a really hard labour, having to do everything by hand. So I walked up a very steep hill called Southcombe Hill onto the moor, and there's a tool there called Wind Tool, and this is where supposedly she was led astray by the Pixies. But the thing I found was that I lost my bearings up there.
Oh.
I was only on the tour, and I'd only walked a few meters, and I suddenly became really disorientated, and I spotted a rock, and I thought, oh, I'll walk to that rock. And I walked over to it. I thought, oh, I've already been here. This is the rock I was at before. So I can see how people would get really easily lost on Dartmoor. Whether if Pixies are involved or not, it's easy to get lost up there. Yeah. So it's really fascinating to walk in her shoes.
It was a really interesting idea to do that. And I mean, yeah, did you take any more trips like that where you followed, and are you planning to do any more? Because I think that's such a lovely project to kind of follow in those footsteps.
I do want to do more. I did a bit of Tom White's journey from Huckabee. So Tom White was a farm labourer, and he lived in Postbridge, and he walked across the moor over Bellevator, where Bellevator is, to Huckabee Farm to see his girlfriend. And according to the story, he'd do this nightly. And it's a journey of about 5 miles, which is a long way, and it's quite tough going over that, over rough ground. So I decided to follow his journey from Huckabee. The farm's still there. It's a really old farm. And yeah, I just walked up to Bellevator, and that was far enough for me, actually. But as I got to Bellevator, which is where Tom encountered Pixies dancing, and they pulled him into his dance, and they kept him dancing until sunrise. When I was approaching the tour, it was a really strange series of events, but I think this is how the other world works, as you were just saying, like with the bird. A bee buzzed past my ear really loudly, and that caused me to look on the ground, and then on the ground there was this piece of horsehair, and it looked like it had been plaited.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I've kept it. I've got it somewhere I've kept it as a lucky totem. Because the tradition is that Pixies would plait the manes of horses, and they'd use them as stirrups, these plaits, to be able to ride the horses across the moor, the Dartmoor ponies. And they'd be, say, pixie ridden the next day, so the farmers would find the ponies and they'd be really exhausted because they'd be ridden by ponies. So I thought that was a really interesting nod that's the way I took it from the Pixies, that yes, we're still here on Belvedere. You
That's
better
really
respect the
cool.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's for you as a folklorist, that's a language you understand, and they do speak in your language, whatever that
Yeah.
is. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
I thoroughly believe that. However we prefer to be communicated with, then that's how fairies will speak to us, because they know they can get our attention that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And parts of the book you talk about, the protection of the landscape too. So, thinking about honouring the landscape in a very real and kind of urgent way. We've already got some questions coming in, so we'll hop over to those in a minute. But Vivian says, plaited horsehead, that is the calling card of the good people. So yeah, please pop your questions in the comments, folks, and put them in capitals so that I can find them. And for those who might be watching afterwards, the folks that are hopping in the messages here, we're all part of the Modern Fairy Sightings Patreon group, so do come along and join us there for future events too. And it's just a really lovely place where we get to talk about things like this, which we all love doing. There's not many people in our lives that you can, is there?
No.
It's such a relief.
I mean, my poor dad, I've spoken to him about writing this book for the last few years. And he's just sat, we've had cups of tea. I'm still writing my book. Oh yeah, really? But he'll listen. That's him. So it's nice to talk to people that are on the same wavelength and like you say, understand the language that you're talking about.
Your dad came, I mean, he's in your book. He's a
Yes,
strong
he
presence
is.
in your book because he came along on some of these adventures with you.
He did, bless him. Yeah, we went to some places. So especially when I didn't have a car and I say, oh, Dad, I need to go to this place. He said, okay, we'll go and do it. And there were a couple of places that we went to and we were just absolutely drenched, in rain and freezing cold conditions. But we always went for a cup of tea afterwards and a piece of cake. So that made up for it. Yeah, but he's been a great support throughout my book, and I'm really thankful for him, taking me to some of the places that I couldn't get to, and just being moral support, really. Yeah.
I mean, this kind of runs down, it's his line that is Dartmoor based, isn't it? It's your paternal line.
Yeah. So we often have been up to Princetown, and we'll always drive by his aunt's house. And he'll say, oh, that's where Auntie Et lived, and we'll talk about some of the stories and some of the family. It's lovely. It's a lovely connection place for us up there. It's a wild. Princetown is such a wild place. It's even if it's warm and sunny in this part of Devon, it's quite often really cold up there. So yeah.
And you talked about how there was the Tyne and Bovey rivers. Can you talk a little bit about what happened there, please?
So that was in the 1990s. I think it was 97, and the villagers of Teen Grace were really worried because a big clay company in Devon, in this part of Devon, wanted to change the route of the River Teene and Bovey so that they could dig for minerals.
Yeah.
And the villagers were up in arms. They complained about it, but their voices weren't heard. And then so they just thought, that's it, we're going to lose our beautiful river, and a lot of the wildlife and our way of life is going to be impacted. They were worried about increased flooding in the village. And then one morning they woke up and a whole host of eco protesters had turned up, and these people then helped to fight with the villagers. I feel quite moved speaking about it because it's so beautiful.
It is.
And they helped them to stop Watts Blake and Bean, as they were at the time, from destroying the river. And campaigners like David Bellamy came down, other local environmental campaigners. It was a real big community effort. And they won, you know, like the little people won. And they even did a march to London together. And I interviewed a couple of the villagers who are quite elderly now that were involved. And they're still friends with one of the campaigners who actually moved to Teen Grace. He was from Birmingham.
Wow.
And he moved to Teen Grace. And they were talking about how it was so amazing that their perceptions of these people were broken down. You know, this difference in, you know, quite, you know, people living what we call ordinary lives in this village, and these people that were out camping in the wild and, you know, and activists. So it's a beautiful story. And after, right at the end, when they'd won, they changed the village sign. And it's now twinned with, it says Teen Grace, twinned with dryads, naiads, and napiads, which are all different types of fairy of different places. So the tree fairies, the water fairies, and the valley fairies. Yeah.
It's a really beautiful story, and I think it's one that is of, you know, of our time as well. I mean, hats off to them for what they managed to do back then, because it's a big job. You know, we're all needing to club together to do this now, and it's very live, isn't it?
Yes, there are so many campaigns. The Right to Roam I follow because, you know, our access to these places is so important. I mean, a lot of these stories have come from these places that we have the right to walk to. You know, we need to keep that access to wild places, and this, you know, especially, you know, in England, because that's where the stories are, and that's where our well-being is as well, and our ability to come together and make positive changes and impacts on the world.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. So thinking about, you know, the places that you've mentioned, a couple of places now where you followed in the footsteps, got there and thought, oh, this is amazing, or oh, wow, this is something I wasn't expecting. Could you share perhaps one or two of the stories that you've shared where you went to explore some of these folk tales or places, and perhaps they turned out to be quite different than you thought, or where you might have felt a particular connection with these places? I know that one thing you did mention was that you found a woodland which remains anonymous, and, you know, not you haven't given the location, which I really agree with, because it has to be protected and it's a very special place to you. So, you know, you could talk about that one if you like, and I just wondered if there are any others.
Yeah. Is that where, because there's a couple of woodlandy places I mentioned, is that the one where I had the experience where, because the artwork is on the covers, I've only got this version, where I saw this being? Is that what you're
Malachite.
referring to? Yeah, malachite. Yeah. I can talk about that one. I think I shared this when I spoke to you before.
You did.
So when I look back, 2016 was a really powerful year for me, for many, and only in retrospect, for many reasons. And I know it was for other people that I've spoken to as well. For some reason, it was a powerful year.
Mm.
And I had an on and off. I'd always had a relationship with fairy, but I'd been drawn back into, having to do different careers, and that weren't good for me really. And then I finally managed to make the break and commit to connecting with nature and fairies, because I realised it was really good for me. And this was my path. So in 2016, I started to walk to places that I wanted to connect with, and I started to keep a journal. And I went to this woodland, and as I was walking there, I could hear an inner voice saying, keep walking, because there's something at the end of the woodland that is really special. And also I was hearing psychically, I describe myself as clairaudient, so I receive these sounds and I could hear giggling, and I thought, okay, this feels fairy. So I walked around the woodland, and I came to the end of the woodland, and there was a standing stone, big standing stone on its own at the edge of the woodland. And I was wondering about going in, and I thought I'd better ask if it's okay. So I asked if I could go into the woodland, and I had a really strong no come back. But the words I got were first, initiation. Those are the words that I received. And I thought back, what does that mean? I realised that I'd had the message to pick up rubbish in my local woodland for a while, and I hadn't done it. So I thought, okay, maybe it means I need to look around, see if there's anything to pick up from the ground. So I looked around, and behind the standing stone, there was some rubbish that someone had left behind. So I picked it up. I had a plastic bag in my rucksack. I picked it up. And then I asked again, can I come in now? And I received a yes, you can come in now. And I spent a couple of hours there, and I could see a tree spirit. I was drawing, did some drawings. I still got the drawing somewhere in the sketchbook, and just writing in my journal. And then I left. And at home, I shared the picture that I'd taken before I went in of the stone. And it had a beautiful tree growing over it. I've got the painting here. Maybe I can show the painting so people can see. So this is, there's the stone. Stone and this archway. Can you see that? I can send the picture to you, Jo.
Yeah, I'll flash it up.
Yeah. And this woman on this group that I posted the image, it was a fairy group, she said, oh, there's a little figure above the stone in the tree. And I looked and I thought, oh my goodness, are my eyes deceiving me? That looks like a little person. And it looked to me, it looked like it was pointing to where I'd picked up the rubbish. And okay, so people would say, that's pareidolia. That's, your mind seeing shapes in things. Well, that's the scientific explanation, but I do use that idea of pareidolia a lot, as scientific people would call it, to connect in. So I take these mirror photos where I see half a face in nature, and that's the way my mind works. That's the way I see, one of the ways that I see the other world and connect with it. So for me, that was a message, that was a being. And I drew him. He's on the cover of my second book, and I ended up connecting with this being again. He's called Malachite. I called him because I received the message that he likes the malachite stone. Or that's what I thought at the time, but that ended up, that was another message, that malachite, I needed that crystal at that time because
Right.
it was, very healing stone.
That's a kind of quite a dark green one, isn't it? With sort of
Yeah,
darker colours going through it.
it's got dark stripes on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dark
So
stripes.
my son and I went back to the woodlands, and this was 6 months later. My life completely changed because my mother was sadly diagnosed with cancer, and I became her carer. And I realised that I wanted to go back to the woodland and give some thanks to this place. And my son came with me. He was only very young at the time. And we went back and paid our respects. And it's really beautiful. And we took a piece of malachite back. And my son dropped it into a hole in this oak tree. You're not allowed to go into this woodland anymore, but to protect it. But he dropped the stone into the tree, and I took a photo. And then a few months later, I was looking at the photos of him putting the stone in the tree, and he said, "Oh, Mum, that looks like a face." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, let's mirror this." So I mirrored it on my phone, and it looked like the face of this pixie. We'd put the stone into its eye, into the pixie's eye. Which is just, amazing.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's like, there are these different dimensions and these different ways that these beings reach out to us, and it's all, they know things that we don't know until, a few months later you'll go, "Oh, yeah, okay, that's what that meant. That's why I was supposed to do that or go to that place."
Yeah. It's
Mm.
interesting, isn't it? It's kind of dreamlike, and that is the sort of realm in which, we begin to understand these languages, these clues, to some people it might seem dreamlike, and life can actually be dreamlike, and if it is like that, often it's like we're lucid dreaming and we are following breadcrumbs in a story of our lives and our deep connection with these places. And it never fails to amaze me how these sorts of situations come about. And in your book, you also talk about, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Golitha Falls.
Oh yes, Golitha.
Golitha Falls. And this is
Yes.
where you had the message about creating the book. So could you tell us a bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was 2015, and I'd been exploring sound therapy for a while just to help with my well-being. And I went to a sound therapy concert at some caves near there. It's beautiful caves. I've forgotten the name. It's gone out of my head at the moment, but it's at a place called St Neot in Cornwall. And such a lovely time. And so whilst I was there, I went to Golitha Falls, and I sat on a big rock near one of the waterfalls. It's a series of waterfalls, and I meditated. And whilst I was there, I just had the message from Fairy that I needed to write about them in books. So that was 2015. And just write about, they wanted to be remembered. They want their stories to be recorded. They want people to know that they're still around. And at that time, I thought, I wonder what form that book's going to take. And I didn't really know at the time. And then obviously I've released these books now, which give some of their message. So yeah, that was really beautiful. And whilst I was there, I took a photo of the waterfalls. There was just beautiful sunlight streaming down. And as I was looking at my photos, I could see this form in the waterfall, and it looked like this, what I called a rock gnome. It's like this stony kind of being sat, and it looked like he was handing me a book, like he had a book in his hands that he was handing me. And yeah, it's such a beautiful experience. So there you go. That was 2015. And 11 years later, I've got there. I think with fairy, they work because they work on a different frequency to us, and things happen more quickly with them. I don't know if they understand that we can't keep up to their pace, because I've been in situations where I've received a lot of information before, and I thought, hang on a minute, this is going to take 30 years of the human existence to do this. Yeah. I can only do a bit at a time. So yeah, it's interesting though. It's such a gift to receive these insights, and yeah, really encourage people to take notice of anything that you receive, especially with how you're going to spend time. I mean, I've really paid attention to this recently with listening to, okay, what's going to bring me most happiness? That I go and do that today, or that I go and follow this impulse to go to this place. And it's always by following the impulse that makes you smile and brings you most happiness, that brings the most just magic and enchantment into your life. That's what I found as well. You know, when we have free time, I realise not all of us have that luxury of lots of free time, but the time that we do have, it's really important to spend it in a way that lifts you up. And yeah.
It's a good point, and I think that if we follow that urge, as you say, all sorts of amazing things happen that we never could have predicted. It's not like you say, well, I'm going to go there and therefore this and this will happen, or I'm not going to do that because whatever. It's more, as you say, following your intuition, and
Yes.
other things happen. I firmly believe that to be the case. One thing I did when I was reading your book about the Goblin's Gold. Now, had I read your book, you know, a month ago, I wouldn't have had any reference for Goblin's Gold. Last week, we were in Cornwall and we went to Carnooney.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And I don't know if you know, but in the fugu, which is not much of a fugu, sadly, because they've put a hole in the ceiling.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, at one point, I guess it would have been under the earth. So I'm not sure what happened there, because it's kind of got a lid on it. So at some point it's been open and they've put a kind of artificial lid on it, which is probably wood or something like that. And then in the center there's a circle. And so if you're in the fugu, which you want to be dark so that you get the sensory deprivation, that's not what you experience there, unfortunately. But however, all around the side is this Schistotega of Goblin's Gold, the moss, which is it is a fluorescent moss, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yes, and like fairy stories, like the fairy folklore, if you take it from the cave and take it out into the sunlight, it's just like a rusty kind of colour, crumbly, and loses its beauty.
Yes, so it has to remain within its realm for you to to appreciate its magic. It was quite something. Anyway, I thought of you when when I saw that. But the other thing that I know, we talked about this before, but perhaps you could let people know about your connection, and then we'll get on to some questions, folks. Your connection with the story of the hairy hands, because it's fascinating. This is, again, is your family line, and it's a really intriguing story.
Yeah, so my connection is through my great-grandfather that worked at Dartmoor Prison. He was a prison nurse. My other great-grandfather was one of the prison guards. It sounds like they were completely chalk and cheese in personality-wise, because the great-grandfather that was one of the prison guards, he was quite a brute, as described by my grandmother. But my other grandfather, Sam, I would say he was a bit more like me, quite sort of peaceful, thoughtful sort of person. And he trained as a nurse. So when the doctor went out, and that was Dr. Helby that he worked with at Dartmoor Prison, Sam was sort of deputised for him, especially with giving out pharmaceuticals. So he distributes the pharmaceuticals to prisoners in the prison. So this particular day in March 1921, he was deputising for Dr. Helby, and Dr. Helby had gone to, ironically, he'd gone to inspect the body of someone, like a farmer, I think, that had been killed in an accident. And he was on the way back from Tavistock with the daughters of the deputy prison governor in his sidecar. So they were on the way back into or through Postbridge. Or no, they were coming down Merrypit Hill, into Postbridge. And he lost control of the motorcycle and drove off the road and went down into the ditch, and he hit the wall at the bottom and was killed instantly. The two girls were thrown out of the sidecar, and they walked into Postbridge and reported the accident. Obviously, they were in a lot of shock. And they said that a pair of hairy hands had grabbed the motorcycle handlebars and steered the motorcycle off the road. That's the story from my grandfather. So that's my grandfather's version. The newspapers didn't report anything about hairy hands. All they said in the very first newspaper report, which was about Dr. Helby's death, and then there was the coroner's report that followed that, and he said that the evidence of the two girls wasn't to be accepted because of the state that they were in, so the state of shock that they were in. But no mention of hairy hands or invisible hands. And it was only a few months later, in the approach to Halloween, October time, that one of the, I think it's the Daily Mail, printed a story that said about invisible hands grabbing the motorcycle handlebars and steering it off the road. And then other people chimed in, and there were lots of theories about magnetic rocks and ghosts of ancestors roaming the moors and all these different crazy theories. And local people ended up getting quite fed up about it and writing to the newspapers and saying, oh, please stop reporting these stories. So it's interesting. Don't really know whether the story did come from the girls, as my grandfather said, and somehow leaked out, or whether it was just a rumour that went around and people in pubs were just making up stories. But there was a history going back of accidents on this road. It was known for motor vehicle accidents or horse and carts. It also had accidents on this road, so it's a notorious accident hotspot.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that one of the prisoners, as you said, in the kind of more recent times, did actually see, a wild man, which would presumably have a look of having hairy hands coming out of the thicket like that. So there's some kind of backup there. Anyway, it's sad, but nevertheless intriguing tale. And I wonder if those girls, I wonder if their families ever kept a record of what they said. And would any of the reporters of the Daily Mail been at that inquest and potentially have heard from the local people? Just wondering if that's maybe how things leaked out.
I don't think they were. I think it was just the local coroner and local people involved in that. Because there was another story that appeared in the papers that doesn't seem to have a founding, that sort of brought the story back I think was it the next year or a few months later, where a mysterious journalist, who I've not been able to track down, must have been a pseudonym, wrote about an army captain that was riding his motorcycle along that road and had a similar experience where he felt invisible hands had grabbed the steering wheel of his motorcycle and steered him off the road. But there doesn't seem to be much factual basis for that, and whether that was just a made-up story to keep sell newspapers, basically, I don't know. But the girls, they were part of the aristocracy. Their father was aristocracy, basically. So that's probably another reason why the story was quickly kept out the hushed and kept out the papers. And I did track down who they are. And there are actually pictures of them. They were known in sort of social circles of the time and married into aristocracy themselves. So I don't know whether it would be interesting, wouldn't it, if there was a record somewhere.
Yeah. And do we know what was beneath that road before the road was built there? There are sacred sites all over Dartmoor.
So I mentioned Bellevator, and that is very close to this road, not far away in Bellevar Forest. The forest was planted in about 1938. So there wasn't a forest there at that time. It just would have been open moorland, and where the road is, that just would have been part of that sacred area where there's standing stones and hut circles and
makes you wonder, doesn't it? We've lost so much in the name of modernity, and what that spot may have once held. We just don't know, do we? But really interesting. Thank you, Claire. Okay, so right, we're just at an hour as well. Let's just pour through. And of course, I'm saying Art Witch before. I realise now this is Anna Vigers. Sorry, Anna. So right, let me have a look. Other people saying their Zoom's been glitching all morning too, so maybe something in the air. The eclipse last night, incredible, wasn't it?
Oh, it's amazing.
I know we did speak a little of it a bit earlier, but I really felt it this morning. Did you?
Yes, it was just such a beautiful, uplifting kind of energy. Yesterday was one of those days where I had one thing after another manifesting. It's like the whole day just ran so smoothly, and all these amazing things were, like opportunities and meetings with people. I wanted to stay up and watch the the meteor shower actually, but I was just too tired last night. So yeah, waking up this morning, it feels like that. There's some of that energy still around, and I would say make the most of it and harness it for anything you want to manifest at the moment, because I think it's a really powerful time for bringing in, making our dreams come true and bringing things to fruition. Definitely.
I believe, I believe for the next few days, to do that. I had a bit of an experience this morning in the shed. I was mentioning it on Discord earlier.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, I woke up at 4:30. Could not get back to sleep, and I knew, we were talking today, and I thought, oh no, I really should be going to sleep, and I couldn't shake it, so I got up at 5:30 in the end. So I just thought, this is not happening. I just need to get up. And I usually get up at 6:30 and go and meditate. So I thought, right, well, I'll just go and do my meditation now. And there was such a strong presence of, it felt like a light presence. It was very unlike my usual meditations. I went straight in, really deep, but with this presence, I acknowledged, what was happening. And I had this, it was like the light entered my body. It was absolutely amazing, and it felt like some kind of healing or something. I had felt it in bed a little before I got up. I thought there's something happening in my body, but it wasn't until I was sat down in my meditation shed that, so it just, I always think, if you wake that early, perhaps it's just better to get up, because it kind of feels like an invitation.
Yeah.
And these
I
things
do
happen.
that now. I think it's an age thing as well. For me, anyway. I wake up in the night, and instead of fighting it, I just think, just get up. And actually, it was really beautiful. The other night, I woke up, and it was 3:00 in the morning. It was so cool outside, and where I live, it's really dark. There's not much light pollution. I was looking up at the sky, and I saw a beautiful one of the Perseids. Meteors coming out of the sky, a shooting star, and it's just this bright golden yellow. And I thought, oh, well, that's why I needed to get up, just to see that,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, there's lots happening at the moment. So Anna says, I'm wondering if Claire has ever encountered anything slightly darker up on the moors.
I've sensed places that I wasn't supposed to be in. It's dark energy. Yes, I have actually. There's a barn. Oh, the one that we went to. And there's one side of that this barn that's open to the public. Excuse me. And it just feels very dark, and it's a point where it feels like this invisible force field that doesn't want to be crossed. And I have been in there, but you just feel on guard. And I went in there to sort of try and record a few years ago, because I wanted to record some of the tapping, because as I was speaking, I was getting taps in return to questions, like quite loud taps and knocks. So yeah, there's something definitely in there that's not very nice, or just doesn't want people going in there. Maybe a less sort of sensitive person might go in there and not really notice much, but that's the feeling I get, that even a few meters back from this entrance to this barn, there's something saying don't come in.
Right.
There are other places.
I was just going to ask, has that stayed exactly the same over time, from the very first time that you encountered the space up until perhaps the last time?
I haven't been up there in the last few months, but yeah, the last few times I've been, it's been the same. I'm just wondering if someone's the sense I got was that someone had been using the space as well
Okay.
for magic or perhaps dark magic. So maybe it's something that's been stirred up by people, because it's not far from the road, this barn. It's open 24/7, so anyone could use it, for whatever they want, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's haunted places. There's haunted places everywhere. I mean, haunted by spirits. There's so many ghost stories about Dartmoor. Just trying to think where else. I think it's just certain spots when you're walking through some places that you get to and you think, oh, I don't know if I want to go over there. Just feels a bit unwelcoming, or best to stay away.
Yeah, we've got to listen to that for sure.
Yeah.
And has Claire ever had encounters with the good people in her home?
Yes, I have. I've written about this in the book, actually, and that was a lot of knocking phenomena that I had that went on. Partly stirred up by me, I must admit, because I did a ritual that I didn't really know how powerful it was after a workshop I'd done. And I came home, I thought, oh, I'm going to practice that ritual. It's really nice, but it opened a doorway in my house. And luckily it wasn't, really malicious what came in, but it was just very tricksy, like pixies, like, fairies can be. And I had, for about at least 18 months, and it still happens occasionally now, and I talk about it, I'd have knocking on, usually, when I was falling asleep or waking up, I'd hear doorbells, letterbox tapping, knocking near my head. I'd hear creaking doors, like a door opening. But then it wasn't just in those states of consciousness that it happened. It also happened on my real letterbox at home, and sometimes I couldn't distinguish whether it was coming from my door or whether I was just, part of my liminal state I was in. It's interesting. And I think I said last time about it's during lockdown, and I was with a boyfriend at the time, and we couldn't see each other. And he would just gently make fun of, my belief in fairies and things. And I thought, right, okay. I said to the fairies, could you go and knock on his door? And talking on the phone one day, and he said, oh, there's an Amazon delivery. I just have to go. I said, okay. And he came back and he said, there's no one there. I said, well, that's the fairies. I asked them to knock on your door.
So DPD delivery of fairies then.
Yeah, so it's mostly been that sort of sound phenomena for me, mostly.
Yeah. Did you have to close down something in the end then, or remove what had come through?
Yeah, what I did was, because first of all, I thought it was the fairy door so I think it's a combination of things. I had a fairy door right by my bed, which is not a good place to have a fairy door. So I had to close that down. I said, you're not allowed to come through here and just bother me, anytime. And I moved it downstairs, and I actually put some quartz crystal in front of it just as a bit of a barrier to stop them coming through.
Yeah. Is Dartmoor quartz? Is it on granite quartz?
Yes. Yeah, it goes down quite a way.
Right.
think it's a couple of miles worth of courts underneath Dartmoor. So it's like a huge island of courts, and there's obviously some under the Cornish Peninsula as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, there was lots actually.
Yeah, and it has been proved to have strange effects.
Oh, yeah.
On people. I think that's why stone circles were made of granite.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
of the kind of psychic effects it has. Mm.
Yeah, no, that's, I hadn't thought about Dartmoor being granite, but that is. Somebody else mentions, Anna mentions, I remember going to Wistman's Wood and meditating. There were tiny white flashes and shadows happening all around me afterwards. I think that might be the wood that's protected now. Caroline mentions, and actually Caroline Farrow, if you, I shared Caroline's little video of the eclipse last night. Caroline did a time-lapse video of the eclipse, and it's, oh my goodness, it's really moving. I shared it on Insta this morning. So yeah, that's, go and check that out if you're interested in that. Caroline was asking, is it bioluminescent? Yes, that's the moss. That's correct. It's bioluminescent. The only other time I've experienced something like that was when we were swimming in Jersey. You get the phosphorescence in the sea, and oh my goodness, it's so magical. My dad for an evening swim. Yeah. And you're just swimming, and the water is just like little magical lights in the water. It's like nothing else because it's so unspoilt down there.
Yes.
So, friend's story: touring rainforest far north of Australia, following a path towards the trees. No wind, yet leaves and twigs began raining down. Branches were creaking, a great noise from the trees. Well, you meant that was from Karen. Thank you, Karen. You mentioned in your book, Claire, about the wind talking as well, and I thought that was really great. Do you want to share a little of that quickly?
Yes, I noticed that, and this has happened so many times, whenever I'm talking about fairies with people that I've interviewed, perhaps, you know, they have a window open or outside in nature, that the wind picks up.
Yeah, it does.
And it really noticeably, not just a odd gust, really picks up. And it is like the elements are responding, or the elementals are responding to what we're saying and the intention that we're putting out there. And I've had it where I've spoken to the winds. That's something you can do. You can speak to the wind and it will have a conversation with you. That's my experience anyway. And you can ask questions about, you can ask questions about your life, something that has a yes or no, where is this going to happen? Or, and you might recognize a pattern in how the wind is responding to you. It might blow a bit more stronger, or, that kind of thing. And this is nothing new or unusual or unique, because that's how people in the past, shamanic people, wise people, have received messages from nature through the natural elements, through the wind, through the trees. There were priestesses in Greece. There's an oracle at Dodona in Greece, and the priestesses there would sleep on the ground, and they would receive messages through the wind, through the trees. They'd put copper pots and items in the trees, and they'd interpret the sounds that the wind would make blowing through these copper elements that were hung in the trees. And people receive messages from bird songs. And so these are all things that everyone can do, and that are just completely natural as ways of connecting with ourselves and the natural world.
So it might, another world, yeah. So it might be a little like with a pendulum, where you have to get your yes and your no. Is to start off with, give me a yes, something like that, so that you get your sense of what feels like a yes and what feels like a no.
So ask a tester question, and see what happens. Yeah.
Something for perhaps listeners and watchers to experiment with. Thank you, Claire. Oh, Vivian says, over the last hour, I can hear whispering over your voice as you speak. And someone, Andrea, is asking, are there elves and fairies and goblins and such in the southern hemisphere? And if not, why?
Oh, yes, they're everywhere. Fairies, the umbrella term. They're everywhere. You can find them anywhere, and they're not just in nature. They do come into our homes because we are invading their space with, the more new homes that are being built. Then they're just as likely to have fairies visiting as a little old cottage somewhere on the edge of a woodland. So the closer that we move to them with our homes, then obviously they're going to say, well, actually, this was already our space. So, okay, if you can come into our home, then we can come into yours. Yeah. So I would say look into the types of fairies that would be in your part of the world and find out what the local stories are, research the local folklore, but also trust what you're sensing and find your own connection, because I think we can get a bit carried away with categorizing things. That's what I found with writing my book as well, that how to define what these beings are and how this one's different from that one can be a bit of a barrier. It's nice to have those delineations, but if you want to have your own experience of fairies, then just go, do your own research and trust what you're feeling and keep a record of what you're sensing, and that's how this connection starts to build up.
I think that's something that people, when they read your book, they'll really get a sense of that. These, what you're offering is a way in to these realms and to through your own experiences, through the stories themselves and the stories of the landscape, just to encourage people to seek for themselves, really. And of course, in southern hemisphere, there's lots of indigenous folklore and culture that does still remain in places, and that hopefully you might be able to be let into that, because it's quite rightly protected for a long time now, for good reason, but I think that's starting to change a bit now, and then some has been handed down.
Yes, I just have to mention that I interviewed Stephen and Evan Strange, who are based in Australia, on the East Coast, sort of near Byron Bay area, and they are of Aboriginal heritage, and they were talking about their fairy experiences. So yeah, the little people are there, and there were real little people, as is common across the world, what we call pygmy people, small people, that were, unfortunately, they had to go into hiding because people were hunting them down over there. So there's the real human people that are smaller in stature, but then there's something in between. There's a little people over there that they've learnt how to change their vibration so that they could become invisible. And there's lots of theories about fairies, who they are, where they come from, and but that makes sense to me, that if something is being hunted to extinction, then it would adapt a bit like the Sasquatch as well, and shapeshift and camouflage themselves, and make themselves invisible so that they can survive.
It is an interesting one, isn't it? I know that the sort of pygmy theory comes up in Evans Wentz, doesn't it? And we won't get too much into that sort of side of things now, but if and that's kind of been largely, you know, it has been sidelined as something that was a sort of an archaic way of looking at things. But I think that we can't sort of just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think it's good to keep an open mind, and, you know, who knows really, because we don't have the answers, and that's of course where we are with fairies 100% of the time. We don't have the answers, which is why, as you say, it's important to feel into what feels right for you, because in your places that you go, wherever that is, whichever hemisphere you're in, those places that you're drawn to, that's, you know, that's the important part. But perhaps you could give me the link, and I will post that below this episode when it goes out, if people want to find that episode, along with all of the other episodes that you have on Fairy Whispering Podcast, because there's lots of discussions there. Thank you so much, Claire. This has been really, really lovely. And, you know, there's so much more we could say. In fact, we could probably go for another hour and a half, because I think, you know, when people read your work, they will, it sinks into you. And there's so much of it when I was reading it that really chimed with me. Obviously, we're in the same realm, aren't we? And I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was a real treat. And as I say, the heartfelt way in which you have written is very clear. And so it felt like an honour to read. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jo. It's been lovely speaking with you again. And thanks to everyone for their questions as well.
Yeah, really great questions. Thanks to everyone coming along. And this is going to go out. So I guess this will magically go out. I know lots of people are here saying thank you so much. That was really helpful to hear what you had to say today. And it was really lovely to meet you. So yes, really, really beautiful chat today. Thanks so much, Claire.
Thank you.
And I shall see you again soon. And are you thinking about writing another book? Or is it too soon? It's like that baby thing again, isn't it? There's a point at which you're ready to have another baby.
Oh gosh, yes, I have. I've got ideas for a couple of other books. So yeah, hopefully it won't take 6 years to write those. But yes, yeah, there will be more.
Right.
Definitely.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And where's the best place for people to buy your books? Is it direct from you or from Amazon?
It's from Amazon at the moment. I am getting them out into local bookstores here, independent bookstores, selling them here in Devon. But for people all over the world, the best place is Amazon. Yeah.
Great. And when you do, folks, when you buy the books, please leave a rating and review, because that will really helps as well with the book. And Amazon, we're all not so enamored with Amazon, but nevertheless, when you're writing a book, that is where the books have to go in order for us to, in order for them to be seen. Sadly,
yes.
So it's like that, and we have to go there and leave the rating to get these books out there, because people need to read and discover for themselves. So anyway, yes, thank you so much for joining me, Claire. I will end the stream now, but please stick around, and lots of love to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks everybody in the Patreon crew, without whom this would not be possible. And I'm always really, really grateful and thankful that we can spend our time, having these important discussions and getting them out there. So lots of love to everybody, and see you next time. Thanks so much for listening and watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider joining us on Patreon for dozens more episodes of unreleased bonus content, monthly online events, and a private chat. We are a warm, supportive community, and it really helps to support the project. Find us on patreon.com/the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast.